Let's get started. My name's Steve Goldsmith. I'm the moderator. We got a distinguished panel here today. And we're going to have a lot of competition because we're going to take a vote at the end of the half hour on whether Miami or Miami-Dade is the most innovative place, right? So let's start with self-introductions with Anna, and we'll go down there, and then I got some questions.
Oh my goodness, I see so many familiar faces. Hi, how are you? Hi, my name is Anna Chammas. I am the Director of Innovation and AI in Miami-Dade County. We love to discover new things, be creative, and do R&D work around AI and transformation in government.
Thank you. Cheriene.
Cheriene Floyd. I serve as Chief Data Officer for the City of Miami. They told me this wasn't necessary, but I have to do it. So the City of Miami is the biggest city in Miami-Dade County, which houses 34 cities. And so our work at the city is framed around three pillars: data governance, data science and analytics, and capacity building.
I'm Dustin Haisler. It's hard to go after these two dynamic speakers. I'm a recovering public servant, but I'm the Chief AI Officer for a company called Darwin AI. Previously to that, I was the president of eRepublic, the parent company of GovTech Governing and the Center for Digital Government.
All right, those are remarkably efficient introductions. So we're going to talk a little bit about how cities prepare themselves for AI, what they're doing today, and then kind of how they can be careful as they accelerate at the same time. So Cheriene, let's just start with you, because you have a huge amount of experience in analytics. So as you think about the deployment of AI, where and how does your use of analytics prepare your city for AI?
Sure. So first I'll distinguish. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. So first I'll distinguish. I will call myself a strategic Chief Data Officer. So typically, like, you can find a Chief Data Officer in IT reporting to a CFO, a city manager. I report into the city manager. And so we're outside of IT, and that has advantages and disadvantages. But what it really positions us to do is truly understand context around data. Because I think private sector, public sector, what we're all challenged with is this urgency to use AI. We don't really know why. We just know that we need it because it will accelerate our business and our services. And so, so the benefit we have is that people come and they usually want a dashboard. And what I tell folks is that we might get you a dashboard, but what this really entails is understanding the context around the data. What problem? So I'm always redirecting to what problem you're trying to solve. And that usually leads us to an understanding of the service at hand, and a mapping, a documentation of that service. And because, particularly in Miami, over the past, I would say 10 years, we've been really focused on keeping that tax base down, not increasing taxes. And for us, that means like headcount. So we've been really frugal about adding positions, about keeping our costs down. And what that means for us is we hadn't made a lot of investments in people focused on data really, and understanding of our data. And so what we find is years and years of processes that have some black holes. So maybe there's a manual portion. Maybe there's a portion of that process that goes deep into email. Like, we email back and forth for days, and then you get your widget. Or, we put the notes about whether that passed inspection or not, but it's in the comment box. So what does that mean? It means that we got to do a lot of piecing together to understand what's happening. So imagine if we took that process and we operationalize that through AI without knowing that context. Like, you got holes, like you got, you're missing some documentation, and it's not doing what you intended for it to do. So what I'm promoting within our organization outside of it is where you want to operationalize a service through AI, and where you want to use an agent to act on your behalf, you got to understand the context, you got to understand that process, and you got to make sure your data, not just your data and your documentation is repeatable, understandable.
So I want to try to create as much friction between the two of you as possible. Let me go to Anna, and then back to Cheriene for a second before we move down. So we could think about this as AI solving a problem. We'll talk about permitting in a second. Or you could think about it unleashing the power of the city workers more broadly. So if you were to think about a use case or a war room, right, how would you establish a war room that would incorporate AI broadly in your jurisdiction?
Okay, so we are definitely, I didn't talk to you about this, but we are training all of the workforce. We're offering and we're enabling all and creating a space that's comfortable for employees to really test these technologies. And it is really critical that all governments do that if we don't want to lag behind. But now to answer his question, right now, all governments are dealing with a terrible legislation that came from the federal government, but it's actually very well needed, which is ADA compliance by April 2024. 24th, 2026. And that is a daunting task when you have thousands of applications, hundreds of thousands of documents out in the public web, and no government is really equipped to handle being able to tackle such a surmounting issue and task. So what we did was we met with various vendors to see what kind of solutions are out there. We met with, various governments to see if there were opportunities they were taking advantage of, and everyone is kind of lost till to today, a little lost in the sauce. But we had vendors come and pitch us for $4 million projects, 1.5 million, and we can solve this for you. Give us $500,000 and we can get you halfway there. And so what we realized was, there was no accountability on the vendor side. I didn't see the proof in the pudding, and so we sat together, the leadership team, and we really thought, how are we going to tackle this? And so what we did was we took the best and the brightest in our county government, and we equipped them with a really powerful tool that's out there through Anthropic, and let them sit in a room and brainstorm for a week to try to build the solution. And we have been able, in a short month, to remediate 68,000 PDF documents. We were able to identify, by classifying the different tools using another piece that we created called to sort of determine the disposition of the document. Like, is it so old? Is it something that people don't transact with?
So in a year, what percentage of your employees will be AI literate in their workplace?
So I'm really happy and proud to say that we have trained 9,000 employees. We're a workforce of 30,000. Repetition needs to take place. So we're launching a whole summer initiative with our partners at Innovate US. If you are a government and are interested in what Innovate US has to offer, it is a free online customized tool for your government that allows employees at a self-paced rate to really go in and learn. And then on top of that, we've partnered with our local college, public college and university, to offer real-time live workshops. And so it's been very exciting work, and we hope to double that and have at least, another 9,000 trained by September.
So, Dustin, let me go to you, and then we'll continue this conversation.
Okay.
So let's continue to pay attention to the question. Does my mic work? Let's continue to pay attention to the question of how to accelerate the use of AI in the city workforce. All right, and there's so much attention today about how to regulate AI and how to prevent the abuse of AI and et cetera. So I'm going to give you a chance for a commercial here. So how could we do both what Cheriene and Anna are saying, which is accelerate the training and the use of AI in the workplace, and at the same time protect against abuse?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think what we've done in the public sector is we've given employees McLaren F1s with no speed limits. So as we think about AI, there's so much capability, so much power that's there, but employees need to understand what's okay, what's acceptable. Now, the way that most agencies deal with that is what? It's policy, right? And we have lots of policies. We've got AI policies that are often in draft form. acceptable use policies, other things. What happens if you give your employees an AI policy and you tell them this is the official tool that they have to use? They're not going to use it. They're going to go to free ChatGPT. They're going to use their own personal Claude. So the way to solve this is to demystify policy and to enforce it for employees in a way that actually is employee-centric. So kind of what we do at Darwin is we sit on their device, kind of like the Norton of the AI era, and we help them comply with policy. If they accidentally take an email that's got PII in it and try to use it in free ChatGPT, we'll stop it. We'll educate them, and they don't get signed up for cybersecurity training for the next year. We do it in a way that's actually employee-centric. And so I think, as we think about this moment requires a new approach. And I think training is a good one, Innovate US +1 on that. But I also think we have policy overload. We also have this tug of war between the federal government, state government, and local government in terms of how we're going to regulate this. And at the end of the day, the employees can't keep up with the changing models, the changing regulations, and everything else. We have to demystify that for them. We have to find a better way to do it. We have to put speed limit signs in clear view for employees to navigate AI. And I think that's why we're in this pilot fatigue era as well, because we don't know when we have it right. And I talk to agencies across the country, both big and small, and everybody is stuck in this pilot purgatory, I think is what we talked about beforehand, because they don't know when to say things are okay. And it will never be that way. We have to be in this continuous state of improvement. We have to be in a state of beta, but we have to find ways to mitigate risk in the process. Think about employee safety programs. You know, when it comes to tripping and falling, right? We can't stop accidents, but we can do things to mitigate the loss associated with accidents, and that's what's required now. It's not a piece of paper, it's operationalizing the piece of paper.
So, Cheriene, you are Chief Innovation Officer, right?
Chief Data Officer.
Chief Data Officer.
We sneak innovation in, though.
Right, I'm her innovation partner.
Oh, I see. All right.
I'm county, she's city.
All right, let me ask you both this question then. So I'm so old. I was around at the beginning of the eGov movement when I was deputy mayor for Mike Bloomberg. I tried to set up data analytics centers. It's kind of worked, kind of didn't work because they were too early. So it feels to me, though, like the AI transformation is potentially much more powerful than anything we've seen before. But how do we liberate employees to use AI to make good decisions when they're constrained by bureaucracy and hierarchy and maybe union rules and civil service? And what's the path to liberation so we can make, and let's just say for a second we're talking about bureaucrat in the loop. We're not talking about displacing folks, we're talking about making them more productive. How are we going to do that?
Oh gosh, that's the question for me. So let me talk about it in the
Question for
framework
both of
that
you.
I use. So it's funny, we do a lot of process innovation work. So my title is Chief Data Officer, but we don't surface data for data's sake. We center it around what problem you're trying to solve. And that usually involves mapping processes. And so I have a framework. I started calling it analytics as a process, not a dashboard. It feels too negative. But the idea is that, like, we're going to work through this process, and we're going to equip. I do some really quick and dirty training around Lean Six Sigma techniques, and I'm meshing old and new. So the old would be these are lean techniques about mapping your process, identifying waste, and these are the tools at hand. Now AI is one of many tools, the most powerful transformative tools, you put it, but we it's a tool in the toolkit, and it's an ongoing challenge as to how to make sure we're pointing it in the right direction. So again, while we're looking at processes, identifying waste, and understanding the tools at hand to address the waste we see. So when I say waste, for those that may not know, I'm talking about when things are going through multiple levels of approval, or when you see things going back and forth, or when we go into an email, a purgatory, and your process goes into email and it's no trigger to get it out of it. So we're teaching, again, those fundamental tools of how to identify that waste. And then we have other mechanisms like data governance. And we leverage that US Innovate training, and we have a draft AI use policy where we are taking a stance as a city as to how our employees should be using it. And I did that in partnership with IT. But we're also working towards putting some guardrails around what they can use. And so one of the first things IT says we want to implement Copilot. And I say, okay, What are the guardrails? How do we identify what data is touchable and what's not? So we stood up a data classification policy. So it's multi-pronged. There's no silver bullet, but I think we have to build it into the way we work. And for us, that's analytics as a process.
So, okay, so let's set some like basic things here. People move linearly, right? We're linear. Humans, like, we don't grow exponentially. We're pretty linear as a species. But AI and this technology is growing exponentially. So that is 10 times faster than we can move.
Right.
So that's number one that I'm going to set as a ground to the rest of this conversation, I believe. The next piece is we're trying to really apply AI without doing something that's really important that Cheriene touched upon. In government, we're not trying to improve the processes. We're trying to speed up a process that isn't working in the first place. And that is a big, big problem. We did talk over there for a little bit about like what introduces bias into AI. AI does not introduce bias. The data that we have collected and that we created 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that had human bias. AI is just interpreting or auditing our human bias. So there's just like all of these things that we need to understand as like a groundwork in the work that we're doing to figure out how, going back to your question, which was about employees, the workforce, and being able to scale. In order to be able to scale, we need to be able to have a way to automate a little bit some of that process reengineering and some of that process improvement. AI can help us do that, right? And so as we start to figure out where we want to apply AI so that it helps us get to the right place so that eventually we can leverage AI to do 10 times a person in work. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Let me quickly ask you and Cheriene a question and go back to Dustin. So I've been kind of using in my mind this hypothetical for the last year that I want the Deputy Director of Transportation or the Supervisor of South Miami Transportation to be able to ask in natural language, why do I have more potholes on this street? Do I have underground drainage problems? Am I using the wrong sort of trucks? Do I have too much traffic on my roads? And not have to ask a coder in one of your departments. So how do we get there in terms of both data and liberation? Then we'll work our way back.
So it's number one, an understanding of our systems, right? We have disparate data across the county in very many different types of services. So I think it's a beginning to centralize data. I think it's critical to the kind of work that Cheriene does. We had Cheriene in the county as our chief data officer. The city stole her. But that was the work that Cheriene was beginning to do. And now we have a data team because we clearly understand how critical it is to begin to centralize this data and to begin to find integration points across the data to make those kind of self-serve determinations for you as a scholar, as a researcher, to be able to find those answers for us, right?
That's good. Cheriene?
It's so funny. First of all, the county keeps our 311 data. But here's the thing. It's back to the fundamentals. If you talk about 311 data particularly, like she's right. Unfortunately, because we're always challenging local government to be in response mode, to respond fast, that you're not always thinking about data governance when you're trying to get, respond to that elected official's request to capture this in your neighborhood or create this new data field. And so what we're finding is the data is not structured most of the time for folks to directly interact with it and ask those questions. So we're in that mode in a lot of places, and I think in our business licensing and permitting, we are so much closer in getting data ready to interact with it in that level. But in some places, we have to do it strategically. But in a lot of places, the governance around that data has been an afterthought, and we're facing that now. But
one thing I'll add on to that conversation, we're in this moment too where we're creating more AI data silos. So there's a temptation because there's no shortage of startups that are building great wrappers on top of OpenAI and other things. The challenge is with 800 shiny objects that are all building on someone else's stack, guess what? We have 800 data silos. So I think the data governance piece is really critical here because it may be very tempting to go and find some shiny object that can help you demystify a set of data you bring into it. The challenge is how do you connect it and operationalize it? So I think this is the moment right now that we're all experiencing.
So Dustin, this is a mixed crowd. It's public-private, right? So let's stick with you for a second. I've thought in my various public jobs, even when procurement reported to me, I thought of procurement as the enemy of innovation, right? Like its job is to say no at all times to anything creative. I've exaggerated, but barely. So what do you think about bring your own AI? How can we buy AI better in the public sector, faster, with the right kind of guardrails? Give us some advice. You've been public and private. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, bring your own AI is here. So employees are already using it. The vast majority, 62% of environments that we're in have AI that they are not aware of, that is not on their radar. I think on the procurement piece, it's an interesting one because the challenge is AI adoption isn't coming from agencies that are going out saying, I want to buy Copilot or Gemini or other things. It's coming from the existing applications that are already there. Every vendor inside of a government agency is in an arms race to bring AI into their product. And so the governance nightmare that we're all encountering now is what happens when they do. How do we apply safeguards to it? What are the procurement hooks to regulate that? What can we do contractually? So I think from a procurement standpoint, this is a touchy one too, because this is also in the crosshairs of the federal government where they want to deregulate state and local ability to require disclosure of models and training data and those types of things. So it's a touchy one, definitely talk to your attorneys. I think data portability is first and foremost what you need to look for. You need the ability to take your data is your data. Any company that's asking to own your data is not a company you want to work with. Your data is your data. Secondary to that, you need to think about what are the guardrails associated with the AI utilization. How are they handling records? What models are they using? Now be a little careful on like model disclosure or model drift because that gets into, again, the crosshairs of the feds. But you can put guidance in place in terms of vendor disclosure so that you have some carrots to do that and then hold them accountable. Work with us, work with other tools that are out there that can help you make sense of this chaos and all this noise that's out there. You can't do it alone, and you also just can't rely on the vendor's own dashboard for this. This is something that we have to do together. There's great associations. Innovate US has a lot of guidance here. The GovAI Coalition, if you're not members of that, is another great association that's got a ton of different guidance and frameworks on it. So plug into that, but definitely work with your vendors, hold them accountable here, work with your procurement teams, educate them on how things are moving. And it's here. Employees are using it, but more importantly, citizens are using it now to interface with government, and that's kind of the next evolution of what we're going to have to try to mitigate. Even if we stop it, they're going to use it.
So, Cheriene, you're purchasers of AI. What do you want from a vendor? What are you asking for? How can you purchase AI that doesn't create the verticals that Dustin's been talking about?
I'll be honest, we're still trying to figure that out, but we are running into this at a more fundamental level. So it's funny because one of my team members is here, and she's actually working with me to develop a checklist, a guide for data sharing with vendors. And so there's a intersection with this AI conversation, and there's a lot of similarities. So what we're finding, again, someone said, hey, help us understand what's happening in this process, or we need a dashboard. What we're finding is that if it's a vendor owned system, we don't always have access to the data and the timeliness that we want it, in the format we want it, or sometimes like at all. I'm embarrassed to say. So what that has led to is we've added procurement to our data governance committee. And so we're making procurement a part of the conversation, and we're talking about shifting that tech purchase workflow to include things that we want to, the way we want to access our data. We haven't gotten to the AI model conversation yet, but it's a natural progression because it's already something that showed its face to us that we need to get in front of this for renewals and new contracts, and we actually are working on a matrix to prioritize use cases where we need to retroactively go back and say, for these types of use cases, we got to talk about access to data and hopefully what sort of AI capabilities exist.
By the way, I'm hoping this acceleration in many of the cities, U.S. cities, are experiencing personnel losses, right? As aging public employees as public employees age out. So if we could think about human in the loop using AI so their productivity, you don't have to lay off workers. If we just increase the productivity of the workers who are there, we could almost match the attrition rate.
It's really more about the attrition rate. It's not necessarily laying off people. I mean, the reality is that AI is going to introduce a whole new type of workforce. It just is. I mean, and if we are fooling ourselves to think that it's not, then we're not staying ahead of the curve. Whether we're looking at models, I see right there, and he's part of Miami-Dade Innovation Authority, and it's a very smart way to procure. Because we get to test and pilot. You asked a question about vendors. Really, the proof is in the pudding. Let's see transparency. Show me the proof that your AI tools are going to work. Because if not, like I said, we did in the war room, we proved it ourselves and we were able to develop that. So for the private sector people here that want to sell us the tools, you need to be able to now market yourselves in a complete different way, because we're implementing models that, it's something our mayor spearheaded, 3-4 years ago, launched fully in 3 years, and now we're on our 8th round of challenges. It's really, really exciting work. We have 2 representatives from MDIA here, and what we're doing is piloting and being able to see how the vendors can prove that these AI tools work. And some of them we're already going to be implementing in Port Miami. So it's creating almost like a pipeline for the innovation and having your executive leadership support that. We have a mayor who really believes in that type of, innovation pipeline.
All right, enough of the commercial.
I am Anna Chammas, and I work for Miami-Dade County. Mayor Danella Levine Cava.
Paid for and authorized by. So let's go right to left. We have 3 minutes left, I think. 1 minute from each of you on what a city or county could do that would best prepare them in the next 12 months for AI productivity. Dustin. What one thing, got other cities here, not just yours. What would a city or county do that would best help them with adoption of ethical AI? What steps could be done that would accelerate the deployment of AI? Whoa, you're last.
She's hacking them up. We can go left to right.
No.
That's totally fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. It depends which side you're on. I'm sorry. You are. That's my mistake. I'm so sorry. I thought you'd like the last word.
The first, the last, whatever you want me to do.
Let's start with Dustin. We'll come back this way.
Yeah, I think, one, don't feel like you have to have an AI policy in order to have an AI strategy. So a lot of agencies get stuck in policy, and they're like, it's with our legal counsel. The models are changing too quick. You already have rules and regulations that apply to AI, so operationalize that and focus on demystifying that for your employees. Next, work with your vendors, look at the procurement process of modernizing that, kind of getting into some of the conversation that we had today, but don't neglect the training piece of this. This is a change management nightmare, but it's not just the employees that are most impacted by it, it's also leadership. Focus on training your leadership, your boards, help them understand what AI is and what AI is not.
Okay, this is I know you said one thing, this is two-pronged. I think in general, we got to get better about writing or articulating problem statements. What are we solving for? So that problem statement, that use case alignment, it's still important. And like projects go to pilot purgatory because we don't know what success looks like. So, and I'm always going to put a plug for baseline analytics. Understand like your baseline. Where are you? And so that if that pilot is doing better for you or better or worse.
All right, final word.
Did I start something new with Pilot Purgatory?
I like that.
You heard it here first.
Is this a whole thing?
I didn't know it was a whole
Someone
thing.
hashtag that so that we can reflect this moment.
Sorry, because my mind went somewhere else. So I think I think it's really important to have an organization that's open to R&D and testing and experimentation. It is really critical to be able to do that as an organization and not be afraid. So rally around your leaders, create your sales pitch so that you have and are able to bring in the resources that are already existing. We already have so much talent in-house. You talked about job losses. We really need to take advantage of enabling those employees with the skills and upskilling them and having that whole movement, and then really allowing them to experiment, really allowing them to, build the new so that they're vested in it.
Great. Thank you so much. Help me thank our panel. We are adjourned.